Disney XD is a name that you've probably heard of before, but not in a long time. For the unaware or those that need a refresher, Disney XD is a sister channel to the similar Disney Channel, an American-based TV channel owned and handled by the Disney branded television. Created in early 2009, which actually makes 2024 its 15th birthday, Disney XD was meant to be the most mature channel of the three Disney channels. While Disney Channel is directed towards a young audience and Disney Junior is for a really young audience, Disney XD was made for older kids, usually young teenage boys. Throughout its life, the channel has created a sort of cult following, with its excellent selection of the original shows it hosts. Gravity Falls, The Owl House, Phineas and Ferb, all the shows that people in my generation just won't stop talking about how good they are. And while not every show on Disney XD is as critically acclaimed as the ones I just mentioned, they're still fairly well known and beloved by fans, even if they may not be common knowledge. But what about the ones that never even had a show to begin with? Better yet, what about the shows that didn't even have as much as a complete pilot? Does something like that even exist? Well, for a long time, I thought so, until I found out about a very peculiar case. This show doesn't have any commercials, no kind of pilot, or anything like that. And that's what got me interested in Hood, one of the most interesting pieces of Disney lost media, if you could even call it that. Directed by Howie Shia, Hood was meant to be a TV series with a small group of teenagers fighting against supernatural dangers using the power of hoodies, hence the name. Aside from the basic premise and some of the characters, there's pretty much zero information about what would have happened in the show. Heck, we don't even know anything about the titular hoodies or how they give the cast any powers. The biggest piece of evidence I could find that proves the show did in fact exist at one point is just a 2-minute trailer released in 2009, which actually would have made it one of the first original shows to ever be hosted on Disney XD. Other than that, there really isn't much to go by. There isn't even a Wikipedia page on the show. To start off though, I want to quickly go over each of the main cast, what little we know about them, and what I think they would have acted like and gone through during the show. Do note that a lot of this is purely educational guessing, as there seriously isn't a lot to work with here, so just bear with me. With that being said, let's start off with Bird, presumably the protagonist of the show who can control entire flocks of birds. Based on the trailer, he looks to be the typical cocky teenage boy who would start off kind of annoying and full of himself, but would end up maturing the most and learning to work with his team at the end of the show. It's a trope that's been done to death at this point, but it would have been interesting to see how he would change as a character, especially considering the time period of when this show would have been made. Then there's Plus Minus, who can generate electricity and looks to have been the super chill guy with an unshakable mind, and apparently is pretty damn good at skateboarding. Based on the trailer, he seems to have known someone, presumably one of the villains back in the day, though not much else is known about him. Next up is Parker, the de facto tomboy of the group. Super agile, her hoodie lets her jump around blazingly fast with ease, and yeah, the name is totally a Spider-Man reference. Otherwise, there really isn't much to learn about this character, and honestly, her powers are kinda boring, but who knows, maybe they could have done something interesting with her. Then there's Photosynthia, who I'm assuming would have been a sort of punch first, think later kind of character. Like, she'd always try resorting to violence when things go wrong. Based on the name being a part of photosynthesis, I'd assume that her powers allow her to absorb sunlight like a plant, which could maybe be the cause for her immense strength. It's hard to tell honestly, considering most of the cast's names are pretty self-explanatory. And finally, there's Luna, who looks to be the leader of the group and has the ability to inflate herself like a balloon, which could let her float and bounce around, hence the name. This is such a cute idea. Practical? Probably not, but I think it could have been an interesting way to give her a sort of inferiority complex. Like, while everyone has these super versatile and useful abilities, all she can do is just inflate herself. Now that I think about it, I wouldn't be surprised if they had tried something like that with Bird. Then there are the characters that we just don't know anything about. The Omega triplets basically have zero appearance in the trailer, which makes it difficult to tell what role they would have had in the story. My assumption is that they would have been the sort of mission control for the team, providing intel and doing typical hacker things for them, like disabling cameras or unlocking doors, that sort of thing. As for some of the supposed antagonists, there's the guy that Plus Minus was presumably old friends with, who has the ability to duplicate himself. Interestingly enough, it doesn't look like he's wearing any kind of hoodie, which makes me more confident in saying that he would have been one of the main antagonists throughout the show. The trailer then cuts to two characters that have no information about them. This lady might have been like a covert spy for the bad guys or something. Look, I'm really trying here. And finally, there's this old man, presumably the main villain, who we also don't know anything about, although he does seem to have a lot of cameras everywhere. The room he's in is what really interests me. That early 2000s sci-fi look that so many shows like to have is such a soft spot for me, and it being here hints at the idea of this being a modern action series with some sci-fi elements sprinkled in. There's still a small amount of notable things to talk about here, but to make sure this video doesn't go on for too long, I encourage you to watch the trailer yourself and make your own observations and assumptions. I'd love to see what you think in the comments below. So now that we've gone over the basic premise of the show and the characters, one big question is left. What happened to it? Is there any pilot or scripts people have found? Well, this is where things start to get a bit messy because, to be perfectly honest, I have no idea. It is so hard to find concrete evidence of the show actually existing beyond a trailer, and the fact that it's one of those pieces of media with a single word title really doesn't make it any easier. Seriously, whenever I try looking up Hood pilot or Hood trailer, the only results I ever seem to get are car parts. While I wasn't able to find any solid evidence of a pilot ever existing, I did find a few pieces of concept art for something called Hood 2.0, which, yeah, I have no idea what this could mean. I'm assuming it was meant to be a sort of reboot built off of the original trailer. I got all these amazing concept art pieces from Lillian Chan, who worked with Hawashia during the production of the show. Huge shoutouts to her for keeping all these on her page. It helped a lot with the making of this video. Interestingly enough, a few of the character concept arts are for someone named Curfew, who, as far as I'm aware, doesn't at all appear in the original trailer. And if they do, they're never explicitly named. Could they have been one of the Omega triplets, one of the villains, or someone else entirely? It's hard to tell. Aside from that, there are actually a few interesting things to note here. For one, both Bird and Luna seem to have had their names and powers changed from the trailer to 2.0. Bird seems to have been renamed to Chuck, and Luna had her spelling changed from Luna like balloon to Luna like moon. Speaking of, it looks like Luna's powers are going to be completely different. Rather than inflating herself, she seems to have some sort of gravity or telekinesis powers. I'm not really sure why this would have happened, but if I had to guess, the people working on the show realized that trying to make a superpower like inflating yourself interesting throughout the entire show is probably really hard to do, so I can see why her powers are going to be changed. A few of the concept pieces for Chuck also have him seemingly transformed into some bird monster, though it could just be his hood taking the shape of it. Was he also going to have his powers changed? If so, I guess the team working on the show thought that his original powers weren't interesting, but who knows. But that's not quite everything I found. The director of the show also has his own website, and lo and behold, in the studio and freelance section, he has the trailer for the show proudly presented. The video's description actually lists off some of the people who worked on the show, such as the aforementioned Lillian Chan, so now we at least have a general idea on the team behind Hood. And as soon as I was getting the ball rolling, I came up short. Everything I just mentioned is pretty much the only thing I could find during my research, but that's not quite where I gave up. I decided to send an email to both Howie Shia and Lillian Chan to hopefully get a few answers about the show, like why it was cancelled, what was up with Hood 2.0, and if there's any kind of pilot, etc. Unfortunately, it's been about 3 weeks since I've reached out to these two, and I haven't gotten a response from either of them, which is totally understandable, mind you. They have their own lives to live, and honestly, even if they did remember anything about Hood, it's likely they don't remember much. This all did happen almost 15 years ago, after all. And that's unfortunately where my investigation had to come to an end. As much as I found out about this series, there really isn't a whole lot of information I could find myself, which is a perfect segue into my call to action. I'm encouraging everyone watching this video to try doing some research on your own. Find whatever solid evidence you can, and feel free to share it in the comments below. All I ask is to not bother anyone involved about it. Chances are they don't want hundreds of emails asking about something they probably barely remember. I do apologize that a lot of this video is purely theorizing though. A lot of lost media videos don't tend to do this much educated guessing, but since there just isn't a lot of information on the show, and because I wanted to try something different, I figured I'd give something like this a try. Please let me know what you think in the comments, as well as your own theories regarding the show. I'd love to hear it. Personally, this was a really fun video to make. Even if I ended up not finding much, I learned a lot about some of the people who worked on the series, and it was just a lot of fun researching and making theories about it. This case is also just really fascinating to me with how bizarre it really is. This was a Disney project that doesn't have so much as a pilot, and whatever must have happened that caused the entire series to get canned before it even went off the ground is a complete mystery. Because of that, I guess you could say that means there really isn't much to look for. But if that's the case, then I think I can live with that. Either way, I think Hood's story in Fate, however short it may be, is a really interesting nugget in Disney history. And while there may not be a whole lot more to it, it's still fascinating to look back on all these years later. Personally, I think there really isn't a whole lot to learn about Hood from here on, aside from reaching out to the people who worked on it, which, again, I advise not to do. But to those who want to pick up from where I left off, best of luck to you, and to everyone else, thanks for watching. Until next time.